As additional names are released today, as our suspect name is released today, we expect that there are people still within our community that have additional information that will be able to help us piece together relationships and maybe possible motives for some of these. If anybody out there has information, please call your local agency. I think we've seen that we're all working together, so whatever local agency serves you, please reach out to them or reach out to Silent Witness. So dating back to November 27th, Phoenix police officers about 10:45 in the evening were called to a shooting in the area of 1500 East Indian School Road. The suspect had already fled the area, but officers found two men deceased inside a car in the parking lot. Those victims have been identified as Andrew Remillard and Parker Smith. A motive in this incident has yet to be identified. Again, if anybody knows these men or has information that will help us with this case, we're urging them to still reach out to their local law enforcement or Silent Witness. Fast forward just a few days, not even a week later, and we have December 2nd, about 7:45 that evening. Officers are called out to another shooting in the area of 4400 West Indian School Road. When they arrive, again, the suspect had already fled, but they located an adult male. He was deceased of an apparent gunshot wound. That victim has been identified as Salim Richards. Mr. Richards was walking in the area when he too was shot and killed. We do have some witnesses that say that Cooksey and Mr. Richards knew each other. That is yet to be confirmed, so if anybody has information, please have them call the Phoenix Police Department. We do know during that interaction, property was stolen from Mr. Richards, including a handgun. Fast forward a little bit more than a week, or right about a week, and December 11th, there is another homicide. It's in the city of Avondale. I'm going to introduce Sergeant Thomas Alt to discuss that one.
Good day. So on December 11th, at about 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon, in the area of 500 East Harrison, officers responded to a shooting call for service. Upon officers' arrival, they located victim Jesus Real in an apartment complex. Jesus Victim Real had apparent gunshot wounds, and he was deceased on scene. The suspect in the case fled the scene prior to officers' arrival. Through our detectives and our officers' investigative, they were able to connect Jesus Real to his sister, who is in fact had some sort of relationship with the suspect in this case, which gave us a person of interest. Through that, our detectives continued to investigate what happened by collecting evidence, physical evidence, through forensic science and witness statements. We were able to develop probable cause for Mr. Cooksey in this case. And from there, I will turn it over to Sergeant Scott White from Glendale.
Thank you, Sergeant Alt. So we do know that we have two cases that are currently tied to the Glendale Police Department in the city of Glendale at this time. The first one happened on December 13th at roughly 6:53 p.m. In an apartment complex around 5100 North 55th Avenue. So that's 55th Avenue just north of Camelback. Our patrol officers were called there for an adult male who suffered a gunshot wound. They arrived on scene where they did find 29-year-old LaTorre Beckford, who had sustained life-threatening gunshot wounds. He was immediately treated on scene and unfortunately pronounced deceased shortly after. Brief description that we got was an adult black male, thin build, dark clothing, possibly a blue bandana over his face. As the investigation unfolded between our detectives and the patrol officers on scene, we gained information that Cleophus Cooksey, who went by an alternate name at the time, or a nickname, was in the complex earlier and possibly had some kind of contact with our victim. We're still unsure as to the exact motive at this time for that homicide, but between statements on scene and from witnesses, as well as the forensic evidence, we did establish probable cause to charge Cleophus Cooksey in the murder of LaTorre Beckford. Again, on December 15th, around 7:22 p.m., not far from the original incident in another complex at 5100 North 58 Avenue, our patrol officers were again called to the scene for an adult male with an apparent gunshot wound. They arrived on scene and found 21-year-old Christopher Cameron, who had sustained gunshot wounds. He was still alive on scene, was transported for immediate care, and was again unfortunately pronounced deceased shortly after. Through that investigation, we began to understand that Christopher Cameron was brought to that area or came to that area to make a drug transaction with our suspect. And through witness statements, through cell phone records, through forensic evidence, again, that's been laid out, we did develop probable cause to charge Cleophus Cooksey in the unfortunate death of Christopher Cameron. I'm going to turn it back over to Sergeant Howard to talk about the next incident. I am aware that there is ties to the city of Glendale, but we're, again, proud to partner with the city of Phoenix, and they have taken the lead on the next investigation involving Maria Villanueva.
Okay, so Sergeant Waite left off on December 15th about 7:30. Just a few hours later, also December 15th, a young woman, Maria Villanueva, is kidnapped in the area of 5100 North 58th Avenue in Glendale. Again, that is just north of Camelback Road along 58th Avenue. We know that she arrived to an apartment complex. She was confronted by Cooksey as she got out of her car. She left in that car with him. Her body was found with evidence of a sexual assault the next day, about 1700 South 3rd Street here in the city of Phoenix. Once again, evidence from those scenes pointed to Cooksey. The next night, December 17th, so her body was recovered on the 16th in the morning. The next night, December 17th, at 7:50 p.m., officers are called to a disturbance near 1300 East Highland. I think Chief St. John spoke about it briefly, about a patrol officer arriving and doing the right thing. When he arrived at that home, he was confronted by Cooksey. Cooksey had some blood on him and appeared to be concealing things. The officer did not stop. He continued to investigate, and ultimately, Cooksey's mother, Renee Cooksey, and her husband, Edward Nunn, were discovered deceased of apparent gunshot wounds inside that house. He was arrested that night and has been jailed since. So the important thing to know about this is that as we put these cases together, if you look at the dates, right about 3 weeks since we realized this, since evidence linked these cases, he's been in custody. He has no longer been a danger to our community. We have waited this amount of time to share this with you, to allow our detectives to develop additional evidence and put together a solid case. We've heard bits and pieces of the evidence along the way, but know that in not a single one of these is it a single piece of evidence that has allowed us to book Mr. Cooksey for additional crimes. This is rather a totality of evidence, including physical evidence, forensic analysis of that evidence, and witness testimony.